Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight with another video and podcast to help support you on your way to success in the police recruitment process. So if you have the online assessment centre ahead of you, and if you're applying to a police force in England and Wales, you have the online assessment centre ahead of you. Then part of that is the stage 3 written assessment. The online assessment centre comes after the national SIFT, and it's made up of a stage 2 interview, which isn't really an interview because you're not talking to anyone, you're talking to some software, so there's no one to interact with, so it's not really an interview. The next part is the stage 3 written, and the part after that is the stage 3 briefing. Now, the stage 3 written is something that really catches people out. Why? Well, because in the guidance from the College of Policing, it says that you do not have to have any knowledge or understanding of policing practices or law or policing, something to that effect, which I'm going to go out on a limb here is nonsense, and it causes people to make more than several mistakes in their written exercise. Actually, I'm going to cover 10 mistakes here, 10 mistakes in this podcast and video, depending on whether you're listening to it or whether you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook. And by the way, if you are watching this, listening to this, and you love it, like it, then please do. It'd be great, be amazing if you could just click that like button for me and subscribe to the Bluelight channel so that whenever I release another video, whether you're a serving police officer or you're a potential recruit, you know, there's something for everyone. You're going to benefit from this straight away, and you're going to get notification that a new video has come out. YouTube is going to be your friend like that. I think it's the same for podcasts anyway. But anyway, like and subscribe. So where this came from was an email that came from someone who wasn't even a client, and I seem to remember they actually gave me a really poor Trustpilot review. It's all right, we've got 4.95 stars on Trustpilot, over 400 reviews. Thank you to everyone who's reviewed, even those of you who've given me poor reviews. This person gave me a poor review because I didn't do an analysis of their written exercise. They failed the online assessment centre, and I didn't do an analysis for them. They weren't even a client, so I don't know what they were expecting, because it's an absolute raft of work. But eventually I've got round to it because I think there's some interesting learning in here, and there's a lot actually, because what they did is I think they cut and paste what was actually their answer in the real written exercise. So all right, I've got a pretty good idea of what the written exercise is all about through my ethical sources, which are many within police forces. So it's nothing that surprised me, but I'm going to go through it and I'm going to pull out 10 things that cause this individual to fail. All right, so pin your ears back, folks. Oh, for those of you who are already my clients, especially if you're on the webinar program, then this will be of interest to you as well. But the key thing, especially the thing that we cover on the webinars, is how to actually not just avoid these mistakes, but deliver little nuggets, little parts of a template really, that are going to completely enable you to succeed. The good thing about this written exercise is it's so predictable in terms of what it's looking for. Well, it is for me, because I specialised in problem solving and in community engagement when I was a serving inspector, and I went on to do work with the European Union, College of Policing, spoken at conferences, worked with police forces and councils across the country. So this is my thing, it plays to my strengths. So all you need to do is just follow the template I give you. You're going to get over 90%. That's what happens. That's what happens. This is such a formulaic assessment process, folks. It really is. It's embarrassingly formulaic. It's embarrassingly tick box. And it does need you to have some knowledge of policing. Because in the scenario, they're going to give you a scenario where you're a police officer and your sergeant, who's not available that day for some reason, has given you a task to complete. And the task is to answer some questions about a particular individual who's vulnerable, who lives in a block of flats, and the residents of the block of flats and in that area are upset with the police because they don't seem to be getting a grip of vandalism and graffiti and other crime problems. And so it's your role to analyse everything that's taking place, to take responsibility for resolving these issues, to work in partnership with other agencies and members of the community, and to ensure that everyone's individual and unique needs are being addressed. So there's quite a lot there for you to get your head around if you've not been in the police sector. And this is why I think the College of Policing guidance that you don't need to have any knowledge of policing is frankly ridiculous, because they're putting you in a position of being a police officer and then asking you to carry out some quite complex vulnerability work around an individual, and also to be doing some problem solving, which requires you to tread quite a delicate path, really, if you're going to make sure that you do it right. But anyway, that doesn't bother my clients because they're going to get over 90% anyway. Anyway, if you want to find out more about how to become a client, then check the links below. There's links to my online courses, the webinars that we run, and there's two webinars every week. 4 hours in total. They normally overrun, so it's normally about 5 hours in total, where we go through different elements of the online assessment centre and we practice the skills that are going to get you over 90%. That's what we're after. We're not just after passing, we're after passing with awesome high scores. Why would you want to pass? Just pass. You want to pass with a really high score, especially now things are going to get really competitive. We're going to face an economic squeeze. The 20,000 uplift is almost over. Forces are not going to recruit at the same rate of knots that they've been recruiting over the past 3 years. Trust me, they will not be able to do so. They've not gotten the money to do so or the funding from the government anymore. So let's get into the 10 things. 10 things, folks, 10 things. The first one is the temptation here. This individual did this actually. They jumped straight into solution mode. You need to demonstrate that you can separate and collate information and intelligence and break it up into what we know and what we don't know. And in terms of what we don't know, then look at how you're actually going to collect that information. So that's the first thing we look at in the written webinar, for the stage 3 written webinar. Second problem, the individual talked about referring an individual, the vulnerable individual, to organisations that can support a safeguarding approach. That's passing the problem on. That is not you taking responsibility and ownership for the problem. Let's see what else. Number 3. Yeah, it's incumbent on you to identify some of the causes of the problems as opposed to just jumping ahead and going straight into solution mode. Before we do any kind of delivery of solutions, we need to look at causation, because identifying that causation, the causes, and the causes of the causes is what's going to enable you to put the right solutions in. The individual talked about the SARA problem-solving model. I will apply the SARA problem-solving model. Yeah, that's what you're going to do, but how are you going to do it? It needed far more detail than that. Number 5, you are going to be presented with some data. We need to be acutely aware of what data actually means, and you can't always take it at face value. So the data might need interpreting, and it might need interpreting with further actions to qualify what your thoughts might be. So you need to have a hypothesis around that data. Number 6, the standard you walk past is the standard you're prepared to accept and the standard you become. So in terms of some of the issues in that area, it's incumbent on you to take responsibility for resolving the ones that don't need any kind of public consultation. The example I often use, I've used it on workshops that I ran in Greater Manchester Police when I was an inspector there, was around, actually there's a couple of examples. One of them was a dumped sofa, another one was a broken telephone box, and another one was a damaged bus stop. You walk past something like that, and if it's still there a week later, we've then got to start thinking about the consequences for communities, the consequences for the legitimacy of the police, and whether you are accepting a lower standard on behalf of that community. So we go into that in a great deal of depth on the webinars, and how you're actually going to enable partners to get involved in that process. Number 7, if you're going to talk about collaborating, you need to talk about how you're going to do it. So there's, in the process we use and the model we use, we're really specific about how we're going to collaborate with not just citizens, but partner organisations. Number 8, impartiality is required of police officers. So in this instance here, the candidate decided to use a dispersal order for everyone who isn't a resident. That is possibly one of the most unfair and inappropriate uses of a dispersal legislation. So this is the danger if you aren't aware of what the legislation is and what it should be used for and how, then you're going to come unstuck. That there probably caused, if they were marking negatively, I suspect they weren't, but if they were marking negatively, this one paragraph, short paragraph, would have scored minus points, Number 9, don't just insert buzzwords. Within this example, there were buzzwords like here, I would show emotional awareness. How are you going to show emotional awareness? Simply using buzzwords from the competency and values framework is not going to get you the mark that you're looking for. And the 10th mistake is don't use little snippets that you picked up from me outside of context. So one of the things I talk about is identifying people who demonstrate the 4 C's, people who are capable, connected, they care enough to act, and they'll commit to take action. Now, all of that is based on research, and it's based on my experience as well. And there is a reason why we're looking for people who demonstrate the 4 C's. And there's a way we're going to identify them, and there's a way we're going to enable them to commit to take action in the community. And it's all based on, much of it is based on the theories and research around asset-based community development. And another model which is called appreciative inquiry. So, if you're picking up snippets from me, don't just put them in there, because the College of Policing assessors will not know what you're talking about when you mention things like the 4 C's or the wagon wheel of social media. They just won't know what you're talking about. So you've got to qualify these things by explaining what it actually means and how you're going to utilize it. So there you go, folks. 10 things, 10 mistakes that you hopefully won't make, that this particular individual did make. I can see exactly why they failed this part of the assessment centre, especially that impartiality part just leapt out at me. It was no, just no, you just don't do that. So, and this is where I think the problem is with the online assessment centre. It's asking you to put yourself in a position that you're not in, and it will favour those people who are already PCSOs. If you're a PCSO, you're going to find this exercise a walk in the park. If you're a special constable, maybe not so much so, because you're going to be very much involved in response policing, and this is not response policing. So if the police are, there's another issue here. If the police are looking at encouraging, excuse me, people to join from more diverse communities who aren't already connected with the police, then in many ways they're not favouring them. They're favouring people who are already connected with the police, and the people who aren't connected with the police, who don't know how things work, are more likely to be failed or get a lower score, which might explain the adverse impact ratio in terms of the percentage of people who pass who are white compared to the percentage of people who pass who are black. Anyway, that's a completely different webinar, completely different YouTube video, completely different podcast. But it's the sort of thing I like to explore, because I think it's really important for the police service that they identify basically why they're being discriminatory in the police recruitment process. They've not done any research on it yet. Unbelievable, considering that they've been discriminating for well over a decade in terms of the adverse impact ratio. And that's according to the College of Policing's own data. It's nothing to do with me putting something together, putting together 2 and 2 and getting 5. This is the College of Policing's own data that demonstrates that their practices are discriminatory. So something needs doing about it. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. If you've liked this, if you've loved it, if you've got something out of it, like I said, please do click that like, love, subscribe, and check the links below to come and join us on those webinars. I'm so convinced these are going to help you that if within 24 hours you think they're not for you, then let me know and we'll part as friends and I'll give you a refund. And if you fail and you've done all the work I've asked of you, then let me know. I'll give you a full refund and we'll part as friends. So there you go, folks. That's how to do it. That's how to nail it. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Speak to you soon.